sweet little fantasy football angels. We are here once again on a Wednesday. No Howard Bender today, which means I'm bringing in my own friends, my good buddies, sharp fellas from the industry over at JWB Fantasy. We got Jake Parry. We got Timmy in the house. Your guy Nubs on Twitter. We're going to load up a Best Ball Mania draft on Fantasy Alarm football today and win our share of a bajillion dollars. Look at that. And there they are, just like magic in the house. Perry, Timmy, what's happening today? I haven't seen you guys since this weekend.
I was going to say, I feel like it hasn't been that long. And I was like, why was that? I was like, oh, yeah. Saw each other all weekend.
All weekend. For those that don't know, this past week was the Fantasy Football Expo. So the goons were out and about. Timmy, absolutely getting after it. Actually, you were being pretty good, man. You were being a good friend. DD'd a couple times, but I'm sure you got after it at certain points. Did you not?
I was able to kind of convince myself Sunday night at Jose's that I was drinking because I was having Red Bulls where I could simulate that I was having vodka in them, but I wasn't. So yeah, I had a good time. Kind of lost my voice and then saw the inside of my eyelids basically all day yesterday. I slept.
Yeah. Yesterday was a special day. Yesterday was it was a day for rest and relaxation and reflection. And my hands were hurting from all the goddamn high fives all weekend long. So I needed to ice those puppies down. But folks, there's no time for silly banter about fantasy football expos. What is expo even short for? I don't even know. Expose? No. Is it just its own word?
It might just be its own word. I don't even know.
Bonkers. Well, anyway, we have it up and running here. We're going to draft a team. For those unfamiliar, come on, trickle in, hang out with us. This year, the biggest, my understanding, the biggest best ball prize pool there is. $15 million, $1.5 million to first place. And we're going to jump in and see what we can do from the 12 spot here, which I haven't done a lot of 12 spot action. How many of these have you guys done this year, Jake?
BBMs, I think 4 or 5.
What about you, Timmy?
I think I'm at about 25.
Yeah, I'm getting close. Not close to filling it. I'm getting close to like 25 or so. I wanted to try and max it, but I'm probably going to end up at like 50 or so. It's just so hard to find the time with a sweet young 1-year-old child to get them done. But we're going to do our best. So for you guys here, do you have any? Do you have any strategy that you're strongly opposed to or definitively in on? Like, I know a few people that, like, even if it's, popular move, it's Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley at the swing. But I know some people that are like, no, I have to get a wide receiver there. Perry, for you, is there anything that you lean more towards or anything that you're definitively against with that?
Yeah, I don't have anything that I'm super against. I typically try and get one wide receiver and one running back in my first 2 picks. Don't really have any preference on who those 2 are. I just noticed that both positions get really gross at a point where nothing even feels like a good pick. So I'd rather have one of each locked in and then kind of adjust from there as the board falls.
Love it. And I love this in the chat from Best Ball on Call. It says to get unique. We're on the clock right here. The top guys available: Marvin Harrison, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, Jonathan Taylor, and for me, Saquon Barkley. So, Timmy, what are you thinking here? Marv, Jahmyr, London, Taylor?
I love Gibbs at 12. Usually you don't get to see him fall that far. And if you do, you're usually on the other end of the board where he falls like 2 or 3 spots. I love Gibbs here.
I'm fully on board. Dude, Bijan fell to 10. I was like, are we about to get Bijan and Gibbs?
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah, so we got our running back. I'm cool with not doing Taylor and Barkley since Perry says he feels best about a wide receiver. Do we want Marv or London? I don't want to go with Debo or like Olave or Waddle. I'm not going to take Nico Collins there either.
Yeah, I don't hate the Marv upside swing here. I think Marv goes nuclear as a rookie.
That's my thought process too. Like if this is my hometown league, like $350 buy-in and you only got to beat the other 10, 12, 14 goons in the league, then I probably don't take Marv there. But when I look around, like you talk about guys like Mike Evans. Mike Evans is good. He's so rock solid, but is he at this stage in his career going to come out and have 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 yards, 1,800 yards, right? Like a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? That's possible for Marv, right? Like
Right.
he could be the next Jamar Chase and come out and just immediately have 1,700 yards. So I think that in a format like this, you got to do it, right?
Something that's important too is that because it's best ball, you have to look at what the weekly upside is. Yeah, we can look at what season in totality could be, but we want the chance at the highest weekly score because most likely we're going to be able to draft guys that can fill in on those lower scoring weeks. But if we can have opportunities for 40-point weeks or whatever, 30-point weeks, that's a way in which you really separate yourself from the field.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it with best ball. Like as a rookie, you don't have, so let's say he comes out and he faces Jair Alexander and he gets vaporized. You also don't have to worry about that, So kind of a beautiful thing. Cause we have seen that with younger players, it's like some of these veterans, they've been around the block. They got all these tricks, right? They're stepping on your feet and they're
Yep.
pulling your pants. They're grabbing your belt, right? And you're like, what the heck? That's not part of this. And you're like, well, I've been in the league for 9 years. So I know exactly how to get you off your game, right?
Yeah, I always talk about it with like offensive line play because that's what I played, into high school. And it was just like our coach played Division I football as an offensive lineman. He taught us like all the little tricks. And so when, playing like as a left tackle and you get the edge rusher and he gets past you and you just like grab his hip just to flip him a little bit. It's not a hold. You're literally just pushing their hip and it gets them so off balance that they can't produce pressure. It's like those are the things that the vets can learn. But like we said in best ball, I never have to be like, oh, I have to sit Marv this week. He's playing a top 3 corner in football. I look at Marv as a top 2 passing, a top 1, if not 2 on most weeks, receiving threat on the team. Kyler, when he finds a guy, he loves that guy. He's going to find that guy. And that offense is in the receiving game anyway, it's Marv and McBride. So it's just his worst case weeks are probably going to be 8, 9 targets. And I'll take that upside.
Exactly. And the way Kyler Murray plays is really conducive to huge chunk plays, right?
Yep.
The longer you can, we saw it back in the day with when Russ Wilson was truly mobile, Tyler Lockett had all day long to just find space, right? So if you give Marvin Harrison time to run around, man, they could be ripping off big 40, 50-yard plays in there. I want to give a quick shout out to the chat, dude. Ani Coop in the house, first in here today. Absolute legend, Ani Coop. Toronto Dave, we already got best ball on the screen. Rex Timotheus in the house. Mile High Luke and Dunn. Podegen Stoner says it's Blitz and Ball Rip season continues, baby, from Garden City, Colorado. Mile High Luke and Podegen probably get along pretty well. You probably would have got along pretty well with some of the folks at the expo as well.
Good amount of them, definitely. Would have been best friends.
A good chunk of them, dude. Not really my scene, but you know what? To each their own. I mean,
So
I drink my share of beers, but I'm not even sure beers are better for you than weed, right? Maybe not. But anyway, back to football. Timmy, what's popping?
I want to hear your take on Barkley. I'm a little bit lower on Barkley this year, so give me the reasons why you're up on you're high on him, you're interested in him.
So I'll consider him here, but I am lower than most on. I'm low on Barkley in general, but in stuff like this, you gotta consider the possibility that he could have a Miles Sanders-esque season with them, where he actually does get a bunch of touchdowns. Now, after we make our picks here, or I'll start on it here. I am worried about the mobile quarterback big time, right? And I wrote an article recently talking about Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley, basically saying, I don't know why they go so much farther ahead of Jonathan Jacobs when it's good offenses for both players. It's a good setup for both players. The backups all of a sudden don't seem very threatening. And then the two of them have mobile quarterbacks, the other guys don't. But we're on the clock here. We're looking at the top guys on the board: Pacheco, Josh Allen, Laporta, Kelsey, Amari Cooper, Hurts, Travis Etienne. Anybody jump at you? We got about 15 seconds here.
I don't hate Laporta going for the potential stack with, Gibbs, him, and Goff later on.
You down for that, Timmy? I usually don't take tight ends early, but
yeah, I feel it's a little bit early, but if Jake feels strongly about it, I don't mind it.
Well, we just auto drafted Pacheco,
Oop.
so I feel great about that. I actually don't mind Pacheco. I mean, I know he's kind of a boring play, but I'm down to go Pacheco Laporte here if you guys want to do that.
I'm down.
Let's do it.
Now, yeah, with Barkley, like the biggest example I give of why Barkley I could be a little bit scared off from him is that you look at a guy like James Cook last year, right? He comes out and he has the third most yards from scrimmage of any running back, which is awesome, of course, right? But because he has a mobile quarterback, he kind of finishes and he's the top pass catching back on the team. So it's not like they had another pass catching back. He kind of finished middle of the pack in receptions. And then Josh Allen scores 15 rushing touchdowns and he has 2. And Latavius Murray actually has 4. You look at Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts also scored 15 rushing touchdowns. I feel like it kind of caps your ceiling a little bit there. So that's why I'm not necessarily in, but like tournaments like this, if you can start Taylor and Barkley and they end up being Taylor and Barkley, it could just blow the doors open. I don't know. So Timmy, you would never consider Barkley there?
It's not that I would never consider him. I think we've seen the best version of Barkley like in years prior. He was running back 13 last year. Wasn't really great in the passing game. I don't really see the passing game opportunities getting better. And then we talk about the touchdown opportunities. And I think one of the reasons why they brought him in was because defenses stopped respecting the play action game. Jake and I talk about this a lot with the Eagles offense, how it kind of the routes were bad and things like that. But like defenses weren't even biting on it. So I think getting Barkley started early in games is really going to help them passing later in games as well. So it's like he can do it. He would just have to be very, very efficient. And when we're picking guys that early, I think we can find better opportunities for players that it doesn't have to be their best outcome. It could even be their medium outcome that we feel much better about taking them at those draft spots.
Yeah, it's true. Like a guy like Chris Olave in that spot even could, a medium outcome is good and the best case outcome is crazy. Or Drake London. I kind of felt like Drake London was a guy that I like taking there just because like last year with arguably the worst passing offense and the worst quarterback, he led the league in contested catches and still had almost 1,000 yards, right? Like how bad could it be with a quarterback upgrade?
Honestly, though, I think that this second round in especially best ball is very inefficient. I just think it's like kind of all over the place where you have like your top 8 to 10, 12 guys in the first round. And then you have almost like a 14 to 18 group in the next round and a half that like, if you're picking at like 204, you might not be in love with who you're picking there.
You know what's crazy about that, Timmy? On this very show earlier this year, it was in a contained draft with Fantasy Lab members. I actually experimented with that, and I took my rankings, and I took the entire second round completely out, and then I just went through drafting a player, and I kind of kept a rule to myself: pick a player one round above ADP every time, and I actually loved my team. I thought my team was incredible. You know what I mean? I was just literally reaching one round ahead of ADP every single time and getting all the guys I truly love. That might be the way. Now, Parry mentioned something earlier with the stacking, right? With Gibbs and Laporta, and we're going to try and get Goff, and we should be able to get him pretty easily. So why don't we take a second here and we'll look at the schedule? Because for people at home that have been watching these Wednesday drafts that we do, this is different. This isn't just 12 people. This is us against the world. This is the boys trying to take down, what is it, 600,000 people, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so you got to lean into the correlations here. We don't do it as much in our hometown leagues or our regular leagues. Here we got to lean into it. So now we're pretty pot committed to Detroit. The playoff matchups for Detroit are Buffalo, Chicago, and San Francisco. So let's start with San Francisco because that's week 17. Who is still available that we like? That we can potentially get some correlation here. Do you guys like taking Kittle? I feel like it might be too aggressive to go 2 tight ends like that.
Yeah, the Kittle price. I mean, Kittle is one of my favorite best ball targets at tight end, just because of his weekly upside. But at the same time, I don't like if I have one, higher, top 5 tight end, let's call it. I'm waiting to draft my last one, and then maybe I'll take 1 or 2 at the end that are just high upside guys.
Right. Yeah, we're already pot committed to Laporta. If Laporta sucks, we're not going to win, right? Because we took him in the 3rd round or 4th round. Okay, so I'll put a pin in Purdy. Maybe we'll go with Goff and Purdy as our QBs. I mean, there's really no other way to get correlation unless we draft Ricky Pearsall and hope that Brandon Ayuk gets traded.
I want to say this though, we might be a little bit early to be worried too much about correlation, as we only have 3 separate teams right now. And I think it's okay to still kind of keep our
I'm not saying this
horizons
round.
broad.
I'm not saying this round. I'm saying throw them in, throw kind of stars on.
No, yeah, I hear you. Just thinking about it out loud. Usually, I usually build a little bit deeper.
Sorry to interrupt. We're on the clock right now. I don't want to auto pick again.
Okay.
The players I like here that I definitely would love. Are you guys cool with taking Chris Godwin here?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because I'm very much in on Godwin. And then the other guys I like that I'm not, it doesn't matter to me. Mixon, Rashad White, I don't mind. Deontay Johnson, I like. Christian Watson, I like. Or we could go with Xavier Worthy with Hollywood Brown hurt. So it's like Mixon, Rashad White, Deontay Watson, Worthy. What do you think, Timmy?
I would go Worthy because I like to get a little bit deeper at wide receiver. I don't usually take Pacheco because I'm usually targeting more wide receivers because I like to be a little bit deeper when then I can take my shots later. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah,
it's already done because the clock is firing. So we're going Worthy here. Would you have gone somebody else up there?
I'm completely fine with Worthy there. I'm with Tim. I typically go a little bit wide receiver heavy, especially when the board falls like it has for us, where quarterback is, I don't want to say going aggressively, but definitely going there. But I also don't hate draft styles where I get like 3 running backs I'm confident in early, and then I just spend 7 rounds hammering wide receiver / tight end / quarterback. But Worthy, the wide receiver 1 upside with him is legit. And I love Hollywood. I don't know if Hollywood's ever going to be able to stay healthy at this point in his career. Kelsey, I think they're going to be a little bit more controlled with his usage. It sounds like Rice's suspension is going to get pushed off, but I think Rice plays more of the role that they were envisioning for Hollywood in this offense anyway. So I was anti-Worthy to, during like rookie draft cycle, like not anti him, but there were just guys I preferred. But as we get closer to the season, I'm getting way more in on Worthy than I expected myself to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, again, if this is my hometown league, there's almost no chance I take Worthy there. But in something like this, you always have to, especially with rookies, consider the possibility that this guy's just incredible. Like we've seen so many times the fastest guy gets drafted in the first round. It's like John Ross or Henry Ruggs or whatever, and then it doesn't pan out. But what if this time it does? Like, what if this time it is Tyreek Hill, right? That they got. It's not Tyquan Thornton this time. So always have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt there, because we know who Deontay Johnson is versus Xavier Worthy.
Right.
Something too, just to comment real quick on how just different builds. If you're able to kind of focus on wide receiver earlier, you can pivot or even adjust to how the board's coming in these, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rounds. Where if let's say we had 3 wide receivers already and we didn't want to go Worthy, we could always do like a Mixon, who I'm pretty high on, where I feel like you get some of that upper tier upside from those earlier running backs that you can get later on too.
Yeah, I'm glad we're mixing up. If this was me, I would have gone Godwin Mixon, or I would have gone Godwin Christian Watson. That's probably what I would have done at that spot. But Worthy is a guy that now that Marquise Brown has a his sternum, it's like a dislocated clavicle where it's attached to the sternum. That sounds pretty bad, dude. I had I've broken a rib and I dislocated cartilage, and dislocating the cartilage was actually worse than the broken rib. You can't sleep. Like, oh, dude, one sneeze, your life is over, dude. Like, it's just insane.
I had the stomach flu at the same time that I 2 days after I broke a rib, and it was the worst thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life, and it's not even close.
Forget about it, dude. All right, we're coming back up here. We got Evan Engram, but again, we don't probably want to go tight end. Ramondre for running back, we're looking at Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harrison, Zamir White, or Raheem Mostert that I would consider. Wide receiver, I don't like Jordan Addison here. DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, Romeo Doubs. Quarterback, we could take Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels.
I personally, of course, Ramondre goes. I was going to say I don't hate Ramondre here. In fact, I really like it. I'd be fine, honestly, with Najee here.
I mean, he's 1,000-yard back-to-back-to-back, right? And
Yeah.
again, we always talk about, oh, what happens if Najee gets hurt? Jalen Warren's going to be awesome. Well, what happens if Jalen Warren gets hurt? That's what just happened with David Montgomery, right?
Exactly.
Najee also gives you 20-point weeks. It might not be all the time, but that helps in best ball.
Yeah. So we'll snag him. And then
Could you read
again,
the wide receivers off again?
yeah, it's Addison, Hopkins, Sutton, Romeo Dubs, and then you're getting down to Josh Palmer. I got Rashid Shaheed could be interesting here. I do love Shaheed.
If I were voting on a wide receiver, I'd vote Hopkins just because he's
Same.
not in our starting lineup right now, and he gives you that stud upside when he comes back healthy.
Yeah, I'm also not worried about the injury like a lot of people are. Like he was practicing for a few days with his knee taped up, like it was concerning him, and he looked fine. I think
Right.
they're just playing it safe with him, and I'm still of the opinion that Calvin Ridley is overpriced and overhyped. Tyler Boyd is a perfectly serviceable slot receiver, but I mean, you can look at everything this team has done. They're going to throw the ball a ton. Like we might have just gotten a 160 target guy at pick 85, which is just insane value compared to everybody else who's going to be there. And D Hop with bad quarterback play last year was still a very startable weekly wide receiver.
And I love Jordan Addison for Dynasty, but he is a total void for me in
Yeah, me too.
in redraft this year.
I can't do it, man. I can't do it because I mean, I just look at him and Hawk, right? Because when you have Jefferson getting the targets he's going to get, if it's him and Hawk competing for targets, if even one of them is fantasy relevant the way that we hope they're going to be, it's not the person that drafts Jordan Addison that wins this. It's the person that drafts the correct quarterback from that team. Like
Yep.
Sam, looking like Sam Darnold. Like if you're going to draft Addison, you almost have to take Darnold, or Justin Jefferson has to get hurt.
Yeah,
Right?
there's
It's like you're asking for a lot, and I don't
there's
want
no in between.
Right, that's the thing is like you have to be pot committed. Going back to schedule correlation, I actually had another member of JWB on the show earlier this offseason, Tyler, and he was saying that he has been loading up on correlation for week 16, not 17. And his thought process on that is that it's twofold. One is that just getting to that last round is equally hard and it's easier to get those correlations. And two, they actually changed the payout structure where if you even make the last day at all, I think you get like $3,000 this year versus last year it wasn't even 1,000 or so. So he's looking at it and he's like, geez, if I just make that last week $3,000 and a shot at 1.5 million, that sounds pretty
Yeah.
good. I mean, are you guys living that life as well? I know you JWB guys are usually ahead of the curve on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go as far as saying we're ahead of the curve, but and this is a pure anecdotal thing here. The most success I've had drafting best ball players was when we were at another JWB member, Tony's Lake House, and we were all just sitting there drinking beer and just pounding Underdog drafts all day. And we were all like, all of our drafts that we drafted there, because we're like, bouncing ideas off of each other, like looking at the correlations. So, Tyler is one of, if not the sharpest guy I know in this space. No offense to any other person there, just working so closely with him for so long, doing a weekly show with him in season every year. Like the dude is just good at what he does.
Yeah.
So if Tyler says something, I just listen. Like he rarely ever is going to get pushback from me.
I started thinking about it a lot more when he said that because I actually didn't until he came on the show and said that. I did not know that the payout structure changed. Where now, I mean, $3,000 on a $25 bet, that's pretty good, dude.
Yeah,
You know
I don't think
mean?
anybody's going to complain about that.
Yeah,
I've always kind of felt week 17 correlation is way too heavily valued because of the fact that once again you have to get there, and we don't know how the dynamics of these teams are going to change throughout the year, especially when it comes to injuries. So to bank or to say that this is going to be this or this defense is terrible or whatever before the season even starts, you're kind of putting a lot of eggs in one basket. To be honest, I think this year you want obviously the elite players at each position, but I actually think that this year, like late quarterback is going to be one of the more differentiators when it comes to advancements, because you're going to have your Josh Allens and such, but if Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or whoever takes, a dump one week in the playoffs, your second quarterback is going to matter a lot. And it could even be that they outscore them anyway.
Right. And last year you created so much leverage. If you just took one quarterback, and I have been preaching this in Superflex, is that like the best way to create leverage in Superflex is take one good quarterback and then wait and try and hit on the big dog, because you actually lose some of that leverage if you take two high end quarterbacks and then last year you get CJ Stroud or Jordan Love, because now you have to bench a good player, right?
Right.
Whereas, so
and
if
your
you
opportunity
hit,
cost of drafting a different position that
so
actually starts.
we're on the
to-
clock here. We're looking at Javonte Williams, at running back, Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, Devin Singletary. We probably should go wide receiver here. And Tyler Lockett, Wicks, Cooks. I don't really like Wicks. Myers, Jerry Jeudy, Adonai Mitchell. Got to go quick.
I don't hate Myers. Target potential there.
Good with me.
It's a very conservative play, but we're gonna go Myers. And then I mean, he's good for 800 yards every year on the dot. So running back, do you guys like Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, Devin Singletary? Should we go with a quarterback here? Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Jared Goff are the next names.
I don't hate taking Caleb here because
like
that gives
Caleb.
us some week 16 correlation with our line stack there.
I was just thinking that.
One other comment, real quick, when we were talking even just like the Javonte versus Spears. I'm a big Javonte guy, but like based on our build of how many running backs we already have, and this is just something to consider as you're building your teams, you might even want to go for a Spears who might give you more higher spike week numbers in terms of when he actually gets 2 or 3 touchdowns or however that plays out, where you're not playing him every week, but you want those really big weeks.
Right. We probably should have double tapped QB here because I'm not sure if Goff is going to make it back to us.
We're round 10. Yeah, he'll come back.
We'll see, dude. We'll see. It gets kind of dicey in there. I want to ask you in advance.
Just go Herbert late.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you. Yeah, we'll be all right. I'll ask you in advance about a few guys that I kind of like, just to see if we can add some guys to the queue and not be panicking coming around. So at running back, I don't mind Singletary. I don't mind Gus Edwards. Singletary just went. I actually. Wow, all the guys I was just going to bring up just went. This is a sharp one here. Let me see. Oh, what do you guys think about drafting Nick Chubb in something like this?
I love it, honestly. You're mitigating the risk, like that's already baked into the cost here. And even if Nick Chubb is 75% of what Nick Chubb used to be, that's going to give us multiple startable weeks in this format where we're not projecting a matchup. Like they could even just say, hey, Nick, you're the goal line back for the first 8 weeks of the season. And he punches in 2 touchdowns and cracks a flex spot for us if somebody else doesn't. And, that all the risk of a Nick Chubb coming off 2 ACLs with his age, it's baked into cost already. If he was completely healthy, he'd have been gone in the second round.
Right. He's out there. He's squatting a gazillion pounds.
I think it depends on the round you have to take him, because the further you go down in your drafts, the less weeks you need this player to contribute to your lineup. Obviously, some may be 0 because you're just shooting upside. So if he's a 10th round pick, that's different than if he's a 13th round pick for me.
So it would need to be this round for us, almost certainly, if he's there, and he would be our RB4 after Gibbs, Pacheco, and Najee Harris. So at this spot coming up, at wide receiver, we got Brandon Cooks, Jerry Jeudy, Adonai Mitchell. A guy that I really like, no homer, is Jalen Polk.
I agree. I like Polk.
I think there's upside to be had there. I'm not really taking a lot of Gabe Davis or Darnell Mooney, but I could be convinced. What do you guys think?
I've got a good amount of them, just where there was, stacking potential or correlation, but I'm never going out of my way to draft those guys unless they fall 10 plus picks past ADP.
Yeah, there is one thing to be said about Darnell Mooney in terms of everybody's giving Tony Pollard a pass for him saying, "Oh, I'm coming off the high ankle sprain and the tightrope surgery. I was not myself until week 11." Well, Darnell Mooney had the same injury and the same surgery. Yep. So, do we give him a pass or does he just stink? I don't know.
Mooney was a legitimately good wide receiver in Chicago, and then the scheme changed to the point where he just wasn't being used in the correct fashion. But I mean, I get that, broken clock is right twice a day, but the way that Darnell Mooney was turning around guys like Derwin James, there's so many clips of him just making these elite defensive backs look silly.
Completely.
That wasn't random. Like the guy knows how to run routes. His issue was always his hands. His hands were questionable a lot of the time. And then once he started figuring that out, that's when he was kind of deadly.
Yeah. So we're coming up here. the guys I have in the queue, and again, Pat Fryermuth would depend on whether. So Jared Goff is a very top player on the board. I think we should take him.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
we have to take off here.
Yeah.
So we'll let the clock tick down and we'll take Goff. He's all set to go. The other options I like. So do we think Brandon Ayuk gets traded or to the Steelers or no? Because if not, then we could draft Fryermuth here and just be done with tight end. Otherwise, I'm cool to wait and take like a Hunter Henry or something. But if we think that trade goes through, then I don't know.
I personally think it goes through. I think Ayuk is just done with.
Oh, he's going to go to the Steelers.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
we don't want Fryermuth there. So what do you guys think? Zeke, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet, Ty Chandler, or we can take Mooney or Gabe Davis. Josh Downs coming off the knee, a little risky, or Ricky Pearsall.
I don't hate Pearsall.
Yeah, I mean, if the trade goes down, well, that's the question right here at this pick, right?
Yeah,
It's like
if we're making a big bet on that being the trade by not taking Muth and going Pearsall, but I truly think I don't think they're drafting Pearsall in the first round if they haven't thought for a while that Ayuk wasn't going to be a component of this team, because Pearsall was the wide receiver in the draft who most closely succeeded at what Ayuk did.
right.
And I think that's why they, took what I viewed to be, a second or third round talent at the end of the first round, because they were planting their flag of like, this guy's going to be a guy for us.
Right. And the big reason I think you're right on that is that you don't use a first round pick. You got to consider what the role is in the offense, right? Like
Yep.
that, because they use the fullback so much. Dude, last year, Kyle Juszczyk and Charlie Warner combined, the two of those guys combined, played more snaps than Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Like those two guys combined. And the two of them, Charlie Warner and Kyle Juszczyk, they played like over 800, maybe even 900 snaps. They combined for 20 targets. That's why everybody else in the offense is so good. It's so highly consolidated. So why would you draft, when you're trying to compete now, why would you draft a guy that's only going to play 50% of the snaps? I think I'm with you on it. I think the writing was kind of on the wall when they made the pick.
Yeah. They're as much as I like to dog on the 49ers, which is almost exclusively because my dad and brother are 49ers fans, like they know what they're doing for the most part. Unless if they're drafting a day 2 running back, he probably stinks. Avoid him because we've seen that 4 years in a row. But like every other pick that they've made recently has been pretty successful. Like they know who they're targeting for their offense. They're not just going like we draft for best player available a lot of the time, where we see, this guy is what I view as the best player left on the board. I'm going to take that guy. The 49ers are a team that goes, here's what we need. Here's the guys that fit that mold. Who best fits that mold? Okay, that's who we're going to take. And when they do that, they're successful. So Pearsall, I was kind of out on him. I was like, especially because people were hyping him up a ton going into the draft. And I liked him, but I didn't like him as much as a lot of people. And then the 49ers took him, and a lot of people were like, oh, he's like wide receiver 3 on that team. Kittle's going to get his. CMC's going to get his. And then so he fell down, and I ended up with a lot more just because the value finally made sense. And I was like, okay, I liked him. Now I feel really comfortable at price.
Right. It's like that's dynasty is exactly where I take those guys. You got to believe in the talent. And like I'll trade for JSN right now because I think that he could have Godwin like upside when he becomes one of the top 2 guys in the offense, but right now he's not. You know what I mean? So you got to wait on those. We get a question in the chat from Mile High Luke. If Ayuk, let's say hypothetically, he is going to Pittsburgh, where does that put him in the rankings, and where does it put Pickens? Timmy, are you moving him up, moving him down? It's interesting because it's like targets versus quality targets.
I don't know if I'm moving him too much. Pickens for me was always like a wide receiver 3 type of player where I'm happy with the upside weeks or the spike weeks, but it's not someone I ever felt comfortable banking on. And I think there will be enough volume in that offense. And I also think that the Steelers are going to be in the red zone more, which is one of the reasons why I like Najee. So I don't hate any of those players. I don't think there's too much movement going on for me when it comes to the trade because Ayuk's going to get targets regardless.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we saw last year, even on 105 targets, he went bonkers. And I don't think like Russell Wilson, it's so crazy how quickly things change over the course of a year or two that like, can you imagine a guy like Russell Wilson, who we considered one of the best in the league for so long, and when he was traded to the Broncos, we still considered him one of the best in the league, to say, oh, this 7th round last overall pick is better than him. But that is the prevailing thought now that he's completely washed and Brock Purdy's better. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Russell Wilson was a better fantasy player. I mean, he was, what was he, QB 14 last year, despite missing 2 games.
Yeah, he
So,
wasn't he wasn't. I don't think Russ was as bad as people made him out to be. I think Sean Payton's offense and the skill players that they had there were just not good.
yep. So, Hunter Henry, 1 pick before us. Look at that.
That felt personal.
It
Yeah,
did.
that
Maybe they're
was-
watching the stream. What's up? Good news. We're watching you. Running backs we're looking at Marshawn Lloyd, Ray Davis, Chuba Hubbard, Antonio Gibson, Bucky Irving. I don't mind Antonio Gibson, to be honest.
I don't
I
mind
think-
him. I don't mind Lloyd.
I would go. I have a lot of Lloyd, so it's weird for me, but I think Ray Davis is kind of a sneaky play here.
I like Ray Davis too. Let's take him. I mean, they've been trying to find that player for a while. At wide receiver, we need a wide receiver with this pick, I think.
Yeah, what do you got?
Demario Douglas, Adam Thielen, Rashad Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, Demarcus Robinson, Jalen McMillan, Jermaine Burton had a big catch. Marvin Mims, who hardly played. What do you guys think?
What do you think, Jake?
I
I kind of like Wan'Dale. Is that crazy?
Yeah, I was gonna. No, I don't think it is. I think he's the wide receiver 2 in that offense.
I think he could be. I think Neighbors is locked in on the outside. I think Wan'Dale could be a guy that plays slot for 3 wide receiver sets and stays out there for 2 wide receiver sets. So, like, I think the ideal configuration is Neighbors on the outside and Jalen Hyatt on the outside opposite him.
No, he's terrible.
I know, but so I guess Darius Slayton, who is just
But
as boring as
I-
they get. I can see
I will
Darius
say
Slayton getting
Wan'Dale is
released.
definitely a guy that should start. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he should start. And again, so maybe Jalen Hyatt is just the guy that comes in to stretch the field every once in a while, which a lot of these guys that like KJ Hamler or some of these guys. And then it's Darius Slayton. I don't know. I could see Darius Slayton, honestly, potentially maybe getting released, to be honest. Like
Really?
he has an issue with his contract and he wanted a new deal. And there were some people saying that like his current deal is already kind of, for a guy like him, fine. And it's like if he's not going to be part of the plans long term, maybe you just release him, man. I've seen some of that out there floating around. So
I didn't know that. That's interesting news.
yeah,
We also have to remember that
kind of had a
Wan'Dale-
pseudo holdout and then he just showed up.
love when that happens.
Yeah.
We got to remember that Wan'Dale last year in a really bad passing offense that was playing backup quarterbacks like Tommy DeVito for stretches of the season. Like he had almost 80 targets, 60 receptions, 500 yards, 1 touchdown, which like isn't spectacular numbers given he played 15 games, but he also had spike weeks of, 17 to 19 points where he'd be making lineups. And assuming this passing attack gets better by having, a better offensive line, a full season of Daniel Jones, who I don't think is great, but is clearly better than the guys that they were starting last year in his place. Neighbors is going to open up passing lanes for other parts of the field that were previously just like throw it to whoever you want. We don't care. Beat us through the air, please. Right. So I like Wan'Dale could be sneaky, really good. And I did a thread on Twitter earlier this offseason where I was like, I compared Hunter Renfrow and Nico Collins, kind of, a little bit of engagement bait, just showing like how similar they were. They each had that year 3 breakout. And really, how to kind of target that. And I never believed in Hunter Renfrow after his breakout because of his usage, his efficiency, all of that. Wan'Dale hits all the markers, albeit in different seasons, of what a potential year 3 breakout guy could look like. And so for me, he's a guy that I'm starting to target more and more because of the cost and just the fact that we've seen him be good at various different things on an NFL field, whereas a lot of the other wide receivers in this range, we kind of just know they're bad.
Right. Exactly. And like the guys that, when you look at around these rooms, sometimes you have the guys that turn into just field stretchers, like Hyatt could be. Sometimes you've got the big, like tall goons that are good at blocking that just become split ends that are part-time players like Justin Watson. Like the guys that we see take that jump are the guys that can play slot and play flanker, right?
Exactly.
Like CeeDee Lamb, people don't realize he only played like 200. He played less than 300 snaps out wide last year. He ran the 4th most routes in the entire league from the slot. Cooper Kupp, when he had the greatest fantasy season of all time, ran the 4th most routes of any wide receiver from the slot. That's the ideal configuration, the modern NFL for upside. So,
and if we look the year prior, before last year, we had Kirk and Godwin killing slot snaps as well.
Yeah. So we're coming up here. DeMarcus. So for wide receivers, all the guys I named just before just went. Demarcus Robinson's there. Very boring but safe. I think we have because we took Jacoby Myers. I don't want to take any more boring players. We got to go upside.
Agreed.
Quentin
I was
Johnston.
hoping for Thielen to come back, to be honest.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston, Malachi Corley, Andre Yoshivas, Troy Franklin, Luke McCaffrey.
I would vote
Baker.
Corley. What do you think, Jake?
I would go Franklin. There's a non-zero chance he's the wide receiver one on that team.
There's a chance that Franklin makes it back to us, but Corley won't.
We don't have to go Corley if Jake doesn't want to.
We can go Corley. I'm fine with it.
We're going Franklin. You said that it's okay.
Okay.
All right. So we got Franklin. We could go. Well, I say we just scrap together tight end with Dulcich or Hayden Hurst. So let's go with a running back here. Tyrone Tracy, turns out it's an ankle. He's not hurt that bad. Jordan Mason, a guy that's growing on me is Justice Hill. What do you guys think about Justice Hill here?
He's gonna have a role. He's had a role every year.
What about Jordan Mason? He seems to be the backup for CMC. Would you go Mason or Hill? Make the call, Nubs.
I would rather go Lobby. I'm not really on either one of those guys, to be honest.
So Lobby was in the queue, but Lobby's so far down. We can get Lobby next round.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. So because of that, I would have looked at what else was available, like tight end or wide receiver or whatnot.
Yeah.
You know who's still available? Jonnu Smith.
I mean, we could potentially.
I thought that's what we were going to bring up. I thought you were going to bring up Jonnu right there.
Jonnu to me. I go back and forth on the upside of this player. There is a world because he is the third target on the team, right? And they do use a ton of tight end. They do use a ton of fullback, which could highly consolidate and give him a decent floor too. But the reality is to really hit the ceiling of a breakout player, he needs one of Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle to get hurt. But he is one of the guys that breaks off a good chunk of big plays. So I don't know. We probably should have discussed that earlier.
He does that, but I also look at like you said, they use a lot of fullback, but like Durham Smythe played had the 11th highest snap share of all tight ends in football last year. And if you give that to Jonnu and you give Jonnu even just the same 43 targets that Smythe got, which I think Jonnu would earn a ton more as we've seen throughout his career, and keep the efficiency numbers the same and like historical touchdown rates. I did the math, and at one point it was like Jonnu would come out to like points per game tight end 9, which not spectacular, but we know that like if you give Jonnu the volume as a yards after the catch guy, the amongst I think it was tight ends with 30 targets or more last year, the only guy that matched his efficiency after the catch was Kittle. And he's consistently a guy who after the catch is up there in terms of production. You're getting in a Shanahan style offense. It's as close to Kittle as you can get without paying the Kittle price in terms of the actual player itself.
Right. And in best ball, that's fine. Because
Exactly.
Kittle in best ball is a good player. In redraft, maybe not so much. I hate having Kittle in redraft, to be honest with you, because
Same.
The huge chunk. The thing is, you got to remember a huge chunk of Kittle had 7 games with 7 or more targets. In 6 of those games, they were missing one of Debo, Ayuk, or Juwan Jennings. But in a tournament like this, I'm fully for it. So I'm hoping Jonnu ends up coming back to us here. If not, again, we can just grab like a Dulcich or Hayden Hurst or something like that. But if he comes back to us, we're playing with house money. Before we get to that, Timmy, I just want to say, I think we're set at quarterback with Caleb Williams and Goff. You guys cool with that?
Agreed. Yep.
We have 5 running backs, and we have 8 wide receivers. So we need one more tight end here. We don't want to double tap tight end though, because we have Laporta. We just need one, right?
Yep.
Okay. So do we want to go with 6 running backs, or do we want to go with 9 wide receivers? You're not supposed to draft 9.
I would go 6 running backs.
I can't see the board.
What do you say?
I can't see who we drafted last. Who was the last player taken?
Jordan Mason.
Okay.
So if that does give us a kind of sneaky, crazy correlation where if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt in the final week of the season, we could have Gibbs, Laporta, and Goff going up against Jordan Mason as a starting running back for the San Francisco 49ers.
And Pearsall at wide receiver, assuming Ayuk gets traded or Ayuk/Debo gets hurt.
Based on the injury history, all those guys, they're all going to be hurt by that time.
Just saying, there's a chance.
Just saying there's a chance. All right, Isaiah Likely, backup tight end, comes off the board. There you go. Johnny's still available, though he is the second one from the top of the board. Let's see if this guy, good news, already took Hunter Henry. He has 3 tight ends. We're getting Johnny.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to say quickly about Janu too is that we have to respect the play design that Miami's coordinators and head coach are able to create. So I feel like there is opportunity for Janu to be able to be someone that is influential in the blocking game, but then there will be times where they start to key in on that, and he's able to break free.
We're on the clock. We're taking Janu, and then we got to take another running back. Dylan Laube did go. Justice Hill did go. So all the superstars are gone. We're gonna have to take somebody else.
Has Roshan been taken? We could go with the little Caleb correlation there.
Roshan is there. And I do like Roshan better than Khalil Herbert, and he's towards the top here. The other options would be Will Shipley, Tank Bigsby, Eric Gray. Eric Gray would have been appealing if the injury was worse to Tyrone.
Tim loves Roshan too, so I feel like I know where Tim's going here.
You're in? We're Roshan?
I'm down with Roshan.
We're all in lockstep. Everyone's in agreement. $1.5 million pick, Roshan Johnson.
Just imagine like Roshan becomes running back 8 on the year. I'll be insufferable about this draft alone.
I mean, I kind of like it here. I kind of like it. So for those kind of working and just listening, and well, first of all, quit working and go over to Underdog. Use promo code ALARM. Get set up. Join a draft. They'll give you they'll match your deposit 50% of whatever you deposit up to $250, and then you can get in and win a $1.5 million and just quit your job completely. So definitely do that. But if you're just listening and haven't been watching along, here's our squad. Quarterbacks: Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, rock solid and correlated. Best friends. Running back: Jahmyr Gibbs, awesome. Isaiah Pacheco, awesome. Najee Harris doesn't have 1,000 yards. Ray Davis, he's the guy that they wanted Damian Harris and Latavius Murray and Leonard Fournette to be. Jordan Mason is going to be a starting running back once CMC gets hurt. And then Roshan Johnson, we picked for some reason. Wide receivers. I'm just kidding. We love Roshan.
I love it.
We do love Roshan. Matt Kelly of Player Profiler is actually very much in on Roshan. And I don't like DeAndre Swift, so I do have to figure out what I'm going to do with my DeAndre Swift hatred. I have to channel it somewhere.
He might be my biggest avoid this whole season.
Me too. So I'm like, but if I don't like him, then I got to like somebody, right? So I guess it's Roshan. We got Marvin Harrison, superstar, right from the rip. Chris Godwin going back into the slot, awesome. Xavier Worthy is pretty much Tyreek Hill. DeAndre Hopkins, locked in 1,000 yards, and he is fine. Jacoby Myers, locked in 800 yards, probably about the most boring pick you could possibly make. But you got to make those sometimes. They give you a nice floor. And then the screen changed. So from memory, everybody on our team is awesome at wide receiver. I think we took Troy Franklin and also somebody else. And
Wandale, Ricky Pearsall.
Wandale and Ricky Pearsall. Look at you. Mine like a steel trap to me. And then mine like a steel drum.
I've been writing them down.
That's smart of you. And then our tight ends, of course, are Sammy Laporta, the tight end 1, and Johnny Smith, a guy that easily has back-end tight end 1 upside and has top 5 upside with an injury to either Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, 2 guys that both got banged up last year. Tyreek Hill's 30 years old. Jalen Waddle is perpetually injured. So a lot of possibilities, boys. What are you going to do with Timmy? You already said you're buying a boat. Parry, what are you doing with your money?
I'm going to be responsible and pay off my student loans and then go wild.
And then, I mean, come on. I mean, obviously you're going to pay off the student loans, but there's got to be, you got to designate it like 10 grand to something dope.
10 grand to something dope. I'm buying a little project Jeep Wrangler. And work on it in the garage, get that thing all beefed up and annoying.
I'll help you with it.
That's sick, dude. That's perfect. I think I would build my dog, because we have a lot of space in my backyard. I think I would build my daughter like the most ridiculous tree fort. Not even tree fort, like a play, like, you know what I mean? Like we would just have like a castle, and it would just be one of those things where every other parent would hate us because it's like the kids always want to come to my house and hang out. You know what I mean? Like
get like one of those mini houses that they sell at Home Depot and just deck it out and just play stuff.
Exactly, dude. Like I would just have one of the playgrounds that you you have to like go to the park to go to, but I would
Yeah.
just have that like at my house, dude. With like the wood chips and everything.
That'd be
So
awesome.
that'd be tight, dude. She's still only 1, so she wouldn't even care.
Yeah, she has
she'll be
time to appreciate it.
exactly. She'll be 2 by the time I have this elaborate playhouse. So there you go, folks. That's how you win $1.5 million. We're gonna win it this year, but I mean next year is anyone's game, right?
Unless we do this all over again.
I mean, I'm down. And once I figure out how the screen works, there we go. So why don't you tell everybody what you guys got going on at JWB? Because I know you always got a lot of moving and shaking going on between Wyatt and the gang. So what kind of shows you rocking these days? What kind of content?
Yeah, so recently we've been doing our ramp up to redraft, so covering a lot of redraft takes, what we care about from the offseason, what we don't, how to react, rankings, all that fun stuff. Tim and I have been doing the Dynasty Digest all off season, running through ways that we can tell you how keep trade cut is wrong and how you can take advantage of people who are the keep trade cut truthers in your league. In season, I do Crushing the Competition with Tyler every Thursday afternoon. Date may change this year, but taking a look at every matchup, finding some key things you can key in on, guys you may want to start that you weren't thinking about, fun stuff like that. Just good chance to talk about ball, and then I'll let Tim run through everything he's doing.
Yeah, so during in season we do Skylar and I do the scare. It's a sit start scare prayer and square episode. Excuse me. It's a sit start. It's probably going to be a different format this year because of the prayers and things like that. So I think there's some adjustments going on. I might even have some individual stuff that I'm going to be doing during the season. But yeah, we have Devi, Dynasty, Redraft, Best Ball. We have everything. So it's a really fun platform to jump on with us in our YouTube platform as well as our Discord, because I think we're almost close to 1,000 members now. It's really active. So if you have advice, you can try, or have questions or want to find advice, you can find it for almost any.
The Discord's great because one thing I love about you guys' Discord is that you're constantly doing mock drafts for like every format. So like, and with real players, and it's not just like expert mocks, though there are experts in them often, but there's also a good mix of people in them, and you're doing them all the time. So anytime I think to myself, I'm like, I can always look at ADP, but ADP and also like consensus rankings they don't give you a good look at a draft, right?
Right.
So I always actually pop over to your Discord and I scroll around and I'm like, okay, I need a super flex 10 and premium. Okay, JWB guys did one last week, right? Or regular 12 team redraft. They did one today, and I pull that up and I take a look at it. I've actually done it on my Friday show with permission from Wyatt. I pull them up and we'll look at them. You're like, these guys just did a draft. What picks do you like? What picks didn't you like? So if you want to get a real looks, that's happening all the time on your Discord. So I really appreciate that.
We also
Something
track
else,
the ADP as well for those mocks that we do all off season. So like we did rookie mocks all off season and then released like the JWB mock ADP, so people could get a look at how drafts are actually going and like comparing that and contrasting that to your Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, things like that, so they can see while a lot of leagues are going to go like this, here's our experience with all of our members. This is how they're going more frequently for us. And it's a good way we track everything from like the highest guys were picked to the lowest they were picked too. So you can see the range that these guys are falling in and how they adjust through the off season. So you can, guy you liked early, maybe he's a value now. Now you can wait on him as opposed to using your 201 on him or something like that. So it's a really, really fun tool, really, really good thing that we have going over there. So
yeah, keep crushing.
Something
you guys.
too with like Yahoo and ESPN is that their mocks feed their mocks and their ranks feed their mocks. So it's not truly representative a lot of the time. And there's a lot of players that will draft that way and then not understand what their contingencies should be if their plan gets kind of knocked off kilter. So it's a really good resource to kind of just go test yourself first.
Yeah, it's so interesting, dude, because like you see sites like RT Sports, their ADP is so different from everyone else. And then it has to get like beaten to death by experts to actually get to where it's like accurate. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's crazy. Yeah. So for me, I've got all my articles are on Fantasy Alarm. Follow me at Coupe Fiasco on Twitter. And you can find me here on this channel Wednesdays and Fridays at 1 o'clock on Sirius XM for the remainder of the season, Thursdays and Fridays, 6 to 8 p.m. Also, our show got renewed, yay, for 10 to 11 a.m. on Sirius XM on Sundays, answering all your questions.
That's
Also,
awesome.
I have another show coming up that I'll save that announcement for this Friday at 1 o'clock. Brand new show. So thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for hanging out. You guys are the ones that make it happen. If you want to get involved with Fantasy Alarm, go to fantasyalarm.com/win. You can get an annual membership. Promo code Let's Go get you 50% off the first month. Or you can get a copy of the draft guide here that I just put directly over Timmy's face and hit that QR code and get all set up with that. So that's it for us. We're going to get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for popping in. Thank you, boys. It was so good to see you this weekend, man. I miss you guys. Having you guys here on the screen, it's not the same.
It's not. It's
not.
I need
the
like a
same.
quarterly expo just to see everybody.
That's what we're doing if we win the big prize here. Cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Let's down payments on not just our houses, but all our friends, right? And just we'll have mortgages, right? I mean, some kind of rates we can get, but wouldn't that be nice?
It'd be so fun.
Oh my God. There would probably be a fist fight on that cul-de-sac every other month, but still it would be a lot of fun.
Sober and drunk.
Just arguing in our Twitter chat, and then we're like, meet me at the street light. This is how I'm kicking your ass.
House is getting egged for somebody sniping you in an underdog draft.
John, Dynasty Coach A, getting beat up every other weekend in the cul-de-sac under the streetlights. All right, we're out of here. That's it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit like, subscribe. It means a lot to us.